Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second edition of the A4Q World Congress. And thank you for everyone who is joining us from all around the world. I am very happy to be here today with Amanda Logue from Canada. Hi, Amanda. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Amanda is a senior test manager at BMM Testlabs, and she's also the marketing director for the CSTV, the Canadian Software Testing Board. And she's going to be presenting today about gambling testing. So, for everyone who is watching, we are live at this moment. If you have any question, any comment, you can please write to us, and we will make sure that Amanda gets the questions. So yeah, Amanda, you are free to go whenever you want to start.
Okay. All right. Thanks. So a little bit of background about me is I started out as a developer and then I turned to software testing. I was in the insurance industry for about 15 years. And then probably the last 6 or 7, I've switched over to be on the gambling industry. I've been involved in the CSTB for the last 5 years. And as Augustina said, I am the director of marketing currently. I've also been involved in the ISTQB for roughly around the same amount of time. And currently, I am the chair for the TBOC working group. And I was also the co author of the gambling industry tester syllabus for the ISTQB. Okay, so let's get started. So today we're just going to go through the gambling industry, the ecosystem, some testing areas, some metrics that we take, and then of course how you can become a certified gambling industry tester. In 2019, gambling was a 451 billion US dollar industry. Online has grown since then about 11.7% due to COVID. Like everything else in the world, online has blown up, and gambling has been the same. We had a lot of our land-based casinos that were closed down, and people couldn't go into them. So a lot of manufacturers and the industry switched to online. There was a lot of online before, but when COVID hit, it just expanded and blew up. One thing that's interesting about the gambling industry is there's over 400 different jurisdictions and regulators. So each jurisdiction has its own rules that must be attested in addition to functional regression, integration, performance testing. But these jurisdictional rules are each game and manufacturer, they need to adhere to these rules in order for the games to be able to be played. So as you can see here, I have a map. There's all kinds of them all over the world. In some countries, there's multiple, and then in others, it's just per country. There's one set of rules. So it really depends, and it's different depending on where you're at. And then of course there's some regions that don't allow casino gambling at all, and they're not supposed to be there. So the business ecosystem. So there's game developers, and they want to make games that are interesting for players to play, and then the casinos earn more money. So the more entertaining, the more interesting the game is, the more money, the more times players will play, the more money casinos will make, and in return, the more casinos will be more likely to buy your types of games because they're getting more revenue. So a game developer can be an independent developer, and they try to find a manufacturer or a casino to distribute their games. Or it can also be a manufacturer themselves. Sometimes that they'll develop games in-house, and then they'll use them on their own machines, and they have many different types of machines. Oops, sorry, wrong button. And then there's machine manufacturers. So they'll test the internal or a purchase game on their machines on the actual EGM. And they ensure that there's few defects. And then they ensure that the game works in all different types of technologies that it's going to be played on. And then after they're done that, it'll go to the ITIL, which is the independent test lab. So the ITIL will test the game that it follows all the compliance jurisdictional rules. Once if it doesn't meet all of the rules, it'll return the game back to the manufacturer. If it does meet all the rules for the jurisdiction, then I guess I can hit. Then it'll go to the regulatory commission, and for each jurisdiction, it approves that game. So what's interesting is if you have one game and they are going into multiple locations, then there's multiple jurisdictions. You have to test that game for each of those jurisdictions that it's going into. If, for example, I have 5 jurisdictions that I want to go to, but there's only one that doesn't work, that I'm missing, not passing all the jurisdictional rules, then those other 4, that game can go to those other 4 jurisdictions. It can go through, and it'll just need to be fixed for that last one. Once the regulatory commission, they'll approve the game. Like I just said, it passes all the tests, all the rules, and that will allow the manufacturer to ship the game to the casinos or to put them online. And then they go on the casino floor or online game. Manufacturers provide different EGMs or gambling devices. So there's like the physical EGM that you're typically see, then there's some video lottery terminals, there's bingo machines, and then there's online. The ITIL's job is to ensure that the game works the way they're designed to work and that they follow the different gambling laws around the world. Now we can get into the casino game software development life cycle. So there's a few different client products. So there can be a new platform, a new pay table, some hardware, some server. It could be a brand new game, or there can be a reskin. And a reskin is just when you have an existing game that's already out there in the field and you just put a new image on it. So it just looks different, but all the back end, the pay tables and everything are all the same. So here, just like any normal software development life cycle, there's the first iteration where a developer will manufacture the software that they're doing. In this case, they develop a game, and then it goes to QA. The QA will test the game. They'll do functional, exploratory, and we'll also do pre-compliance testing in our testing as well. As you can imagine, as in any typical software, there's many iterations here. We'll find lots of defects. It'll go back to the developer to get fixed, go back and forth. After the QA is done and they feel good about it, the manufacturer feels good about it, and their pre-compliance is solid, they don't see any defects in that, then the client will submit it to the ITIL. And then the manufacturer's compliance team readies the submission for the ITIL, and they get it ready. And then the ITIL will certify the game. So they'll do all that compliance testing. And then if it's good, then they release it to the regulator, and then the regulator will release it for the casino floors. So now we can get into a bit of the ecosystem. So there's multiple types of casino devices out in the ecosystem right now. And as a casino tester, you need to understand these different devices and what's different about them so that we can test. So there's some traditional slot devices. There's the VLTs. There's a class 2 bingo device. There's race and sports wagering. There's online gambling, and there's other devices as well that just for us to go through. So, oops. Oh, I went too far. Sorry about that. The traditional slot devices in the ecosystem. So this is what you're used to when you go to Vegas and someone pulls that slot down and it goes. When you think of that, that's exactly what you think of when you think of a slot machine. That's what it is. Each terminal has its own standalone RNG device, and an RNG device is a random number generator. And each terminal is connected to a centralized computer system and allows the lottery jurisdiction to monitor the gameplay and collect and share all the revenue. There's a minimum percentage payout that's usually written into the jurisdictional law. We'll call this an RTP, which is the return to player. So depending on which jurisdiction you're in, each game needs to adhere to that RTP. So some of them, for example, say 72% of the players need to win. And so that's what that is talking about, that minimum percentage. A class 3 slot machines include a currency detector and validates the money that's inserted. So if I am in Germany and I'm in a casino and I'm playing with if I try to put my Canadian dollars in, the machine won't take it. It needs to take euros. is basically all that's referring to. And then the slot game selection process. So like I said, you pull that handle or you push a button. Now they have a lot of them have buttons that say spin on them. And then it'll select that raw random number from the RNG. It'll scale that raw random number into usable numbers, and it'll map those numbers into game elements, and then it'll evaluate your outcome, and it'll determine the award associated with the outcome, and then it'll display that outcome to the player. And then if you're lucky, you get to win and they'll pay you. And then the next one we have is a VLT. The VLT is a gambling machine that allows gamblers to bet on the outcome of a video game. It's similar to a slot machine in that each terminal has its own standalone RNG, which again is that random number generator. And it's also similar that each terminal is connected to a central system, which allows the lottery to monitor all the gameplay and the revenue. Again, there's still an RTP that they need to adhere to. The VLT is set up like a traditional lottery with a finite pool of predetermined outcomes, and there's a predetermined number of winners, and the players competing with each other for a prize rather than against the house. So this is necessary to win each game. So the video lottery selection process is the player initiates the wager. The machine randomly selects an outcome from the available pool. The machine evaluates the prize and associates with the outcome. The machine determines how to display that outcome. And then again, if you're lucky enough, the machine will pay and you get money. And then we have a class 2. And so class 2 is similar, but it's based off of a bingo game itself. So it's a bingo device, and it's also called a class 2. You'll hear them called interchangeably. It looks and feels like a traditional slot, but they're actually playing a bingo game in the back end. Class 2 games are played exclusively against each other rather than against the house. And class 2 games are based on multiple players playing for a common prize, and the electronic bingo game goes until there's a winner. So the selection process for this, the player initiates the wager by purchasing the bingo card. The bingo server conducts a ball draw for the game. Participating machines receive the outcome of the ball draw. The participating machines evaluate their cards, and then they will show an entertaining display of the ball drop on the video display. And then the bingo game goes until there's a winner. And if you're that lucky winner, then you'll be paid. Race and sports wagering. So this is it's a little different area. They're betting on the activity of predicting sport result and placing a wager on the outcome. Sports betting is performed in the casino at a sports betting outlets, at bookmakers, and via mobile devices or online at your local lotteries. There's many different types, as you can see here. So we have money line bets, and they do not have a spread or a handicap. So with this type of bet, the favorite team pays a lower odd than the underdog. So one team is basically just favored to win over the other. There's spread betting, and these are wagers that are made against the spread. And the spread is a number assigned by the bookmakers, which handicaps one team over the other and favors the other. And this can be based on different things. Like, for example, if the captain of the team's sitting out, they're out for an injury, well, then they're probably considered an underdog. So that helps determine that spread. And then we have proposition bets. And these are wagers made on a very specific outcome for a single match, but not for the actual outcome of the games, or, for example, who's going to win the coin toss, and those types of things. That's what the proposition bets are. And then we have parlays, where they involve multiple bets and rewards, and they'll reward a successful bettor with a large payout if all bets win. But if the bettor receives a substantial higher payout than if he made the wager separately. So in this, for example, you say there's like 5 games you're betting on. All 5 of them need to win, and you'll win a higher amount than if you did 5 individual wagers. If one of those wagers is wrong, then you lose for all of them, which takes us over to a progressive parlay, where it's very similar. And say you're betting on those same 5 games, but one game loses, then you can still win. But if all 5 games won, you wouldn't win as much as if it was just a straight parlay. The progressive parlay is just a little more conservative. And then we have future wagers, and this is for like the end of the season or something that's a long term. It's usually so if you're betting on who's going to win the champion at the end of the season, oftentimes you'll bet that before the season even starts, or they'll have a cutoff. Sorry, I was just double checking my notes. I think I got everything there. And then we have some electronic table games and the mobile games. So like I said, this is blown up a lot. So anything you can do in a casino or anything you can do just like on a lottery website or a casino website, now you can do those on your phones, and a lot of mobile apps out there now, and you can do all of those on tablets or on your phones or wherever. So being a casino gambling tester means you need to understand both ISTQB foundation level test techniques and a unique set of skills for the casino gambling system. So when we're testing, we do a lot of the same things that anybody would do in a normal software testing world, right? So we'll do test planning and we'll do test case design and all of those things. We use the same techniques. We'll use boundary value analysis. We'll do a lot of those things. But then there's just an extra set of things that we'll have to look at as well. So one of the things is math testing. So we test the multitude of pay tables, permutations, the random number generator, and then that RTP percentage to make sure that that's all working correctly. We'll do a lot of audio testing as well. We make sure that the game, it's fun and that the sound matches. So if a player wins and it goes wah wah and it makes it not sound good, well, then that doesn't go along with the gameplay. So we need to make sure that everything is in line with how it is. So if you win, it's happy. If you lose, it's sad sounds. And then we have a fun factor or player perspective testing. So like I said in the beginning, if a game's fun, we're going to get more players playing it. And then that means more revenue for the casinos. And that means more games for the manufacturer or the developer, and which is ultimately what everybody wants. So we also have to have that mindset where, is this game fun? Do I like it? Do I not like it? What don't I like about it? So we put our own play on it, I guess, and what you do like about it. And that just kind of comes with your own expertise and learning and playing, I guess, is really how a lot of that gets going through. And then obviously we have the compliance testing, like I spoke of before. There's over 400 different jurisdictions, and each game that if it's going to go to those jurisdictions needs to be tested and pass those rules for those jurisdictions. So you can have one game that's going only to one jurisdiction. You can have one game that's going to 10, 20. You can have it go to all the jurisdictions. But whatever jurisdiction you want that game played in, it has to pass all of those rules. Some of the rules are similar in different jurisdictions, but then some of them are completely not. I think we have a good handle on this. We've talked quite a bit about compliance testing, but it's validating that the product meets the regulatory requirements. And then the quality assurance testing is verifying that the quality and the performance and the reliability of the product. We'll go through this pretty quick because I probably covered most of it. Each jurisdiction has its own rules. They need to be tested. It's compliance testing. The ITIL, the independent test lab, or the government test lab, they're the ones that perform the compliance testing for any product that needs to pass compliance testing. So this is what I was speaking of earlier. If the product fails compliance, it must be fixed or returned to the ITIL. For 100% of those tests needs to pass in order for it to be certified for that jurisdiction. And we kind of chatted about this. So a full range of QA testing occurs before it goes into the compliance testing. So we'll do exploratory, functional, regression, pre-compliance. All of that testing is done before you even submit to the ITIL. It's expensive to go to the ITIL, so a lot of manufacturers or gaming companies, they'll have either an internal QA team and they'll do a lot of this exploratory, functional, pre-compliance tests, or they have contracts out for other companies that will do that work for them if they don't have an in-house QA team. But they'll always do an in-house round of QA testing before going to the ITIL. So QA testing overview, like I said, we do a lot of the same things in gambling testing as we would do in normal software testing. We do test planning and control, test analysis, design, implementation, execution. We'll evaluate our entry and exit criteria, and then we'll close out activities. A lot of times, some of the tests can be reused, so we'll have a section where we'll just keep all those tests and we can reuse them, and we try to do those same as any other software development. And we'll do component integration, system testing, and acceptance testing as well. And then we'll do functional, non-functional, structural, experimental, exploratory testing, and then obviously the jurisdiction and compliance testing. We do some black box, white box, gray box. We'll do everything that is in normal software testing. Regression, we'll do some smoke testing. We make sure the builds work, all of the security, pen testing. We do a lot of hardware testing, which is a little different, where I get into that some here, but the hardware testing, we'll make sure that someone can't break into the machine, and that the coin acceptors, there's a certain amount of coin acceptors that machine will work with. So we make sure that they'll work with all of those, and the games will work with those ones that will go together, coin acceptors and those type of things. So what else do we do on the hardware side? Make sure the tower lights are working. Again, if you win, the tower light goes on and it's all bells and whistles if it's a big win. And so all of those things happen. So that's a part of our hardware testing. Some typical areas that we test. So we'll do some game testing. We'll test the artwork, the game functionality, the game engine, the player interface, the bonus, the back office, the reporting, tournaments, and a game recall. So if we need to pull a game out, we can do something with that. The math testing. So this is the RTP and the RNG. So I think I explained those before, but it's the return to player. So making sure that a certain amount of players get the percentage that are allowed to play or that are win, and the RNGs to make sure that it is a random number generator and that it's random and there's no way to figure out the path to figure out who wins. So we do some remote gambling systems. So this is like the third-party integrations. We do source code assessments, integration testing. This will integrate the actual game with the platform and the network, and we'll make sure that everything's communicating from one end to the other. We'll do platform testing. So this is right around the player registration, shutdown, and recovery. So for that, like if you're in the middle of a game and the power goes out in the casino, well, when it comes back up, it needs to have all that history. It needs to know exactly where the player was at. It needs to have the amount of money that was already in the machine needs to be back in the machine, and it needs to capture all the history. And so there's a lot around that. Progressive jackpots. There's different types of jackpots. There is a jackpot that is just on your machine itself. So every time you play or if you lose, it'll add money into the jackpot and then eventually someone will win it. Or there's also like a link jackpot, and this can be between 2 different games or 3 different games, machines, not games, but different machines within the same casino. And this is called a link progressive jackpot. So if you're playing on those machines, it'll add funds up into that progressive. And then same, one of those machines can win. There's also, you can have a progressive within your casino. You can and that's common, but a little less common is to have them outside of your casino, but within the same jurisdiction. So there can be a game that's in multiple casinos, and that it's adding to the progressive pot from different casinos. Those casinos all have to be within the same jurisdiction, just because there's different rules and regulations, so they're not allowed without. But anyway, so there's quite a bit of testing around progressives. Not all games have progressives, but if they do, then obviously we have to test it. Player loyalty program. So yeah, I don't know if any of you have ever gone to a casino, but you can sign up, you can get a card, and sometimes if you spend enough money, then they'll give you a free breakfast, or they'll give you $10 to play, or whatever they have for promotions. So that's a part of their player loyalty programs. That's all a part of that casino platform that we're testing. And geolocation, you have to be within that area. For land-based, you have to be there, but if you're playing on your phone or your mobile device or anything like that, you need to still be within that jurisdiction in order to be able to play those games. Network communication, security, and reporting. So obviously there's a lot of money flowing back and forth, so all the reporting needs to be there. There's audit, there's control, all of that's being captured, and it's all a part of that platform. There's system and network security testing. So this is a lot of the same type that you would think of. So technical controls, physical environment controls, pen testing, player protective. So no one can get the player's data and information, and network saying you can't get into the network, and then fair gambling as well as part of that. A lot of jurisdictions have what they call like responsible gambling, and there's certain rules and regulations that you need to follow within those. So, for example, where I am in Atlanta, Canada, you need to be 19 to be able to play, and you need to set like your if you're playing online at a lottery, you need to set your wager limit. So I'm only allowed to spend $50 a week or whatever my limit is. I can set that limit, and then if you go over that limit, then you won't be allowed to play for that week until the week rolls over. So there's a lot of those type of RG responsible gambling aspects on the mobile and website as well. In a typical game, we look for defects in the graphics and the game rules not being followed, the RNG is defective, the history, the payouts don't match, the menus aren't right. There's a list here you can see. Document doesn't comply with the specs. History, the history in the machine isn't correct. So if I'm a casino operator, I can go into the machine and I have a special code. You can go in and then you can see the machine history, and it has a list of all the games that have played, the inputs, the outputs, and everything. And so that's what that's referring to. But they need to have a special code or a key or whatever it is to get into these menus to be able to see that. And then if there's certification issues and the game doesn't play the way it's supposed to. So and here I've got game rules listed. So we'll get a set of game rules and it'll tell us, and game specs, and it tells us all about the game, what you're supposed to win, which images are brought up and all those things. So if when you're playing it, you hit that and it doesn't reward like it's supposed to, well, then that's a defect, obviously. We do some exploratory testing. So this is very similar, like you guys would do in normal software testing. We have a charter, you time box it, you debrief on the defects and put them into Jira or wherever you're capturing your defects. And then you review the results. And if you need another session, you'll have another session. And we'll just play the game. And how does it play? Is it fun? Does it play well for an extended period of time? We do testing. I'll get into this later around the load and performance testing, but oftentimes we'll do a long running test case, and we'll set up some sort of software that will run. Sometimes we need to play the game out for like 48 hours or 3 days, 4 days, whatever it is. And then we'll use this software and they'll be running the game all the time for us. Performance testing. So we don't necessarily focus on the gameplay during our performance testing, but we'll do the platform, we'll do online, we'll do mobile, and we'll do lotteries. There's a lot of performance and automation testing that's going on with those right now. And like I said, that long running test, we'll use tools for that as well. Automation is the same, except we also do automation testing for the math and pay table testing, which is also great. Makes things a lot easier for sure. The one thing about that though is, I guess with the automation testing, a lot of games are using different pay tables, and they're using, so you end up having to tweak a lot of your automation to match what those pay tables are. So that part makes it a little different, and sometimes it's hard to get your ROI. Oftentimes casino games, once they're out there on the floor, it's not like you're getting that same game back to be able to you don't retest it over and over again to get that ROI. So it's hard to do that with the automation and to sell all of that. But but for the math and the pay table, a lot of times they'll get reused, but the game details and the game specs are different. So that's why that area is something that we can often leverage that for. And then we get into the QA metrics. So one of the things that's a little bit interesting here, it's different. Anyway, well, at least it was different for me, but it was first pass percentage. So casinos testing, they use many QA standards, and one of them is that first pass. So what this is if I submit a game to the ITIL, to the independent test lab, and the very first time I submit it, they say, yeah, it's good. And then it goes off to the casino floor. Then I would get a first pass for that. If I have a game, I submit to the ITIL and it comes back because there's defects in it, well, then it doesn't get my first pass percentage. And depending on how many times that goes back and forth, then that can be obviously not great, and it can be very costly. So that's why the manufacturers are always looking for that first pass, because it will save them money in the long run. And it also helps build the reputation that everything's passing on their first pass. So if you had 90 games and 100 of them received their first pass, then you have a 90% first pass percentage. Resubmittal factor. This is the number of time the games has to go back to the ITIL to achieve a pass. Oh, that shouldn't say first pass. It should say pass. So on average, each game is submitted 4.5 times to achieve your pass. Then it's a 4.5 resubmittal factor. And then the revocations are the number of games that have been pulled from the field per year due to a major defect. So we can find defects once games are actually out in the field. And there's different types. So if there is a minor defect, the game can stay out in the field and it can be fixed at a later date. If there's a major defect, which means it does not pass something compliance related, then the game needs to get pulled from the casino floor and it can't be played. Obviously, this is crazy bad, and casinos lose money because if they have that casino game on their floor, then it's taking up floor space, and then they don't have a game there. So if there's a game that's not being played, they're not making revenue off of it. So obviously that's not great. Yeah, so that's something as well that we'll capture. And if we do get these, there's always a lot of analysis that goes on, like how is it missed? What can we, like lessons learned, and all of that normal process improvement that you would do during a software testing project, you would also do during this as well, like what's going on. And same here, actually, if you have a lot that you're going through and you have to resubmit a lot of times, we'll also do analysis on that as well. Like what's going on? What are we missing? sometimes the compliance rules have changed and we didn't know, or something like that. And then we just need to update our tests so that we can go through. So there's also that process improvement that also happens. And then now, how you can become certified. So as I mentioned before, I'm involved in the CSTB, which is the Canadian Software Testing Board. We're a national branch of the ISTQB, and the ISTQB is the International Software Testing Quality Board. I'm sure most people are familiar with, well, at least for sure, the ISTQB. The CSTB was founded in January 2007. The CSTB partnered up with BMM Testlabs, and we created the gambling industry tester syllabus as a part of the ISTB specialist stream. It was released back in the summer of 2019, and you can contact your local board or your preferred exam provider because they're all offering the exam. Well, not all local boards, but the exam providers are offering the exam, and you can get certified. And that's all I have. Is there any questions? I think I went really fast. I think I was ahead of time. Oh, not too bad. If you don't have any questions here, you can also reach out to me. My email is amanda.logue@bmm.com, and there's our office telephone. You can reach out there anytime you need. Okay. Thank you.
You hear me?
Yep.
My microphone keeps getting a mute. Oh, I'm here now. Yes, so we do have some questions from the audience. I think someone from the groups. So let's see if we can put them here. Yeah. So have you had experiences with issues or fines due to problems in testing?
Yeah, so we've had problems where we've submitted to the ITIL and it's not passed. And then the game will have to go back to the manufacturer. They'll have to fix the defects, and then we'll have to do another round of testing.
Okay, but it's not after the game is running or something like that.
Oh yeah, we have they'll have to pull games from the casino floor. If it's a major one, they'll pull it. And then there's a lot, like when that happens, there's as you can imagine, there's a lot of people that know about that goes very high up a chain.
I can imagine, because it must be really complicated in that sense.
Yeah, it has a lot
of money involved for sure.
Yeah.
And so it must be really hard to actually make sure that everything is good before launching.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why all the checkups had to be done before the launch, and there's an ongoing process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, so what is the biggest challenge on gambling testing?
The biggest challenge, I think, is for me when I first started was getting to know the industry. I knew software testing. I knew that going in, but I didn't know anything about gambling. I didn't know anything about the machines. I didn't know anything about the world. So that was the biggest challenge for me, was learning all of that side of it and just how it works, and the compliance side. Like it's just a different world. So
it's like the combination of two completely different worlds, because as you mentioned, there are so many regulations that are different, that apply to different jurisdictions, to different games, that your matrix of testing must be huge.
Yep. And we'll try to, like, there's a lot of the jurisdictions that do have a lot of the similar tests. So if your game is going to be in the multiple jurisdictions, you can check it off for multiple, but you still have to do that analysis, okay? Because every game's different. Every manufacturer is different. They're not, just because the last game went to these 3 jurisdictions, well, the next one's not.
Exactly. Wow.
And then there's different types of games. So there's slots games and there's table games, which your table games, like your poker, your roulette, those type of games, they have different rules than just a slot game. So again, it might be the same jurisdictions, but they're different rules. So you have to do that analysis every time.
Yeah. So how much money do you make when you go to a casino?
I don't go. The house always wins.
Yeah. Are you allowed to go? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I
Yeah.
am. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And it depends. So I do work for lotteries as well, and some of the lotteries I work for, um, I'm not allowed to play, but then others I am. It really depends. Yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, we can still play the casino.
Yeah. So the final question that I have. So what would you recommend? I mean, if someone wants to move from regular software testing, maybe automation to the game industry, should he apply for a job, especially in the manufacturer or in the casino? I mean, how does it work in the sense of workplace?
Yeah, so to get a testing job, I feel like if you have the software testing background, that's a huge asset for us,
Mhm.
obviously. Um, one of the when I have new staff that's coming in, I'll often tell them, okay, go check out this website, and create a player account and go on and play. And if it's for a lottery, okay, learn their draws that they have and learn that
Mhm.
schedule and the different just kind of the different draw details. And then same for the games, we'll give them game specs and okay, read over these game specs and then try to understand. It's a little bit of a different mindset to look at this game and say, okay, if I hit this and this, I'm going to get this bonus and that. So it's to figure out how they connect together.
Mhm.
So
What's the
yeah.
logic behind it? Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. We have another question from Alfin Chaco. Does gambling testing only is it only used in casino game production?
No, we'll do it for mobile and lotteries and those types of testing as well.
Okay, perfect. So I think this is the last question so far. Thank you so much, Amanda, for your time and for everyone who is live with us and watching us. If you have any other questions, Amanda left her email and the phone of the company, and you can look her up in LinkedIn or anywhere, and you can contact us, and we will send the question to her. And for everyone that is here, so we are having a very, very interesting and very fun social event in 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we're celebrating Oktoberfest for everyone who wants to join and listen to some nice music and see how this German tradition is celebrated. So you can join for free. So please stay with us. I think we have a small video. I don't know, Christina. No.
This 27th of October, we wait for you to celebrate Oktoberfest in our gather town. For sure, it will be a very entertaining event with live music, with A4Q staff, and of course, all of you. Don't miss our A4Q Oktoberfest. It will be very fun. Prost!
Great. So everyone is invited to join. Yeah, and so I'm going to say goodbye to Amanda. We're hosting more sessions in 15 minutes. Their new sessions are starting, so you can go grab a coffee, a sip of water, and then see us back here. So thank you so much, Amanda, and have a beautiful evening. Bye-bye.